Okay. So if I seem like I'm flustered, it's because I've got a beer, a clicker, and a microphone, and I've only got 2 hands. So I'm going to be shifting around a little bit, but I'm going to try to prioritize microphone first, then beer, then clicker. So I'm going to talk about the future. Everybody can hear okay? Okay, I'm going to talk about the future, but when we think about the future, here's one thing I will say is I can't really tell the future, right? If I could, I wouldn't be giving it away to you guys for free. Second thing is, hopefully it won't be too boring, and thirdly, you're going to get your money's worth. I guarantee it. Okay, so let's get going. And if you have questions, I mean, I'm just sitting here, I'm talking, drinking a beer. You can raise your hand. We can stop. I don't care. I can handle that. So feel free, or we can save them to the end, whatever you prefer. But if I say something that's stupid or that you don't understand, just wave, and I would appreciate that. Okay. So the future. Now, in the future, what I'm not going to talk about is I'm not going to talk about a lot of toys. So obviously, there's cool tools and cool data sets that, as analysts, we're going to have access to. I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about some stuff that I think is more important, and also I'm not trying to sell toys. I'm not trying to sell you guys anything. I just want to talk about where we're at. So the way this presentation came about, I'm going to tell you a story. So, and with every good story, the story starts with Dave Culbertson. So I was here a couple months ago, and I was talking to Dave, and Dave says to me, he says, Mike, because I work for IBM, he says, Mike, is AI going to steal my job? And I look right at him, and I say, Dave, I'm paraphrasing, but this is basically what I said to him. I said, Dave, you're old enough that you don't have anything to worry about, because the technology is still developing. But he said, what about my kids? And I said, that's a good question. And that's my topic for Web Analytics Wednesday. Now, before we get to the future, let's talk about the present. Okay, where are we right now? Because I think right now provides context for where analytics, kind of the thing that we do for a living. Are most people here analytics professionals? Mostly, kind of what you do for the most part. Okay, cool. The thing that we do going forward. So, you guys know this stuff. We as analysts and as people in business are dealing with a mountain of data, okay? Isn't that cool how it's like floating? I found that on Google today. You guys probably know, you've heard the statistics, right? Half the world's data has been produced in the last 2 years. The rate of data creation in the world will double every 2 years going forward, right? And if you think about that, that's a shit ton of data that we're going to have to deal with, thanks to mobile phones, Internet of Things, social media, live streaming video games. Anybody have teenagers? They're streaming Fortnite 24/7, all that stuff. And some of this data is completely useless, completely, but a lot of it's valuable. And part of the trick is that we as analysts need to figure out is how do we separate the good stuff from the worthless stuff, right? And that's a thing that is going on. So as business people, businesses kind of look at this mountain of data, we have this typical solution that humans have come up with over the course of time is to throw people at it. Or you have a problem, throw people at it. Well, so there's been an increased demand for data scientists, right? People who do the things that we do. But businesses, want not just people with technical skills, but people who understand business, who have communication skills, and who can provide context to the math that they're doing. And somebody who can do all those things, what do you call them? Boom. That's right. Unicorn. Which is great if you're a unicorn. And I'm assuming there's more than a couple unicorns here in this room, but they're hard to find, right? That's kind of that's by definition. So when you have this skill gap in the market, okay, there's a couple things that happen there. One thing is, so one of our sponsors, my alma mater, Wittenberg University, creates a program to train data scientists, and that's great, and that will help narrow that skill gap. But when humans deal with problems, specifically problems related to data and technology, there are other solutions out there that might come about. Some of which, so there's unicorns, so right, you try to create more unicorns. That's one solution. But the other solution is, there's a couple other solutions that might come to, and so you have data and software vendors saying, let's skip that, saying I've got a data scientist in a box. I will sell you this box that will replace your data scientist. And that will let you do two things. This is the software salesman's pitch. Data scientist in a box. It lets non-technical people do technical work, and it automates a lot of the lower value analytical work that your analysts are doing right now. And so what is the thing that does that? AI, right? So, and you've probably all heard a ton about AI. You can't live in the modern world and read the blogs and things and talk about AI. I'm not trying to sell you AI other than to say, well, I'm trying to talk about it. It is a real thing. It's coming. It's going to impact every one of us. If you're not as old as Dave, it'll impact you more, or me. I got plenty of gray hair. But I think there's a few things that we want to talk about relating to AI and cognitive systems. I want to say a couple things. Number one, I'm going to use words like cognitive and AI and machine learning a little bit loosely. I'm not a technical expert on this, and I don't want to. There's nuance to all of those things that we're not going to get into because that's a graduate level course. I'm just doing the 101 here. Okay. But with AI, there's a couple things you want to think about. Number one, if you're like Elon Musk, you think that AI is Skynet, right? Here's a couple of his quotes. He's worried about a fleet of artificial intelligence-enhanced robots capable of destroying mankind. He literally has said that. Or AI poses a fundamental risk to the existence of human civilization. Okay. But some people would say, well, AI is not that. AI might be, it's more like C-3PO, a slightly annoying thing that you can make use of, but you can ignore it when you need to. And I think the truth is somewhere in the middle. But whenever, too late, Tim. Get the next one. Yeah. So when you think about, okay, you have this thing that is we talk about AI, and whenever I talk about oncoming technology, the thing that I always want to mention is this. Are people familiar? Know what this is? Gartner's hype cycle for emerging technology. A few of you are, a few of you are not. So basically, what this graph does is it shows, and the things on it. Don't worry about the things on it, but it basically says, I'm going to come over here. You have an innovation trigger, right? New technology comes out. The vertical axis here is the expectation of what this technology is going to do. And what Gartner has shown and has proven is that every technology kind of goes through this path in terms of what people think of an expectation. So it starts out with the innovation trigger. The hype machine begins to spin, right? AI is going to be the next greatest thing. It's going to take over the world. It's going to be super awesome. It's going to change everything. It's going to destroy civilization or just make people, we will never have to work again. Where you hit the peak of inflated expectations, and they plot technology along that graph. Then reality sets in, and people are like, oh, AI sucks. It can't do all these things that they promised. What the hell? And it comes down the downslope there into the trough of disillusionment, where it kind of hits that place. And then the slope of enlightenment. That's when people realize, oh, AI, yeah, it's not going to solve all our problems, or cognitive expert advisors, or security, or augmented reality, or virtual reality, or smart dust. Any of those things, eventually the expectation catches up with reality, and people say, oh, you know what, this thing is useful. Now, the thing that's not shown on here is this is purely based on expectation. It's not based on the actual functionality of the technology. And so if you were to graph the functionality of the technology, more of a straight line, kind of at an angle that probably starts here and then eventually, meets the line pretty far out in the plateau of productivity. So I'm saying all of this because, number one, I think it's interesting, and I wanted to share interesting stuff with you guys. And number two, because when you have something like this, you have, here we go, artificial general intelligence. That's way down here. Now, what that is it's like strong AI, which is the super AI that's the world-destroying stuff. Okay, that's Skynet, HAL, the general AI that can learn on its own. Then there's other cognitive applications, cognitive expert advisors there, kind of on the downslope or up at the top. Deep learning, machine learning, or virtual assistants, or there's a variety, augmented data discovery, various things that include cognitive or AI technology that are mostly right now. And this is about a year old because they only come out with this thing once a year, and this was last July's version. So things will move along the path, but for the most part, AI is kind of a lot of those AI kind of current generation AI applications are way up at the top and about ready to go down. So the hype machine is starting to wear out on a lot of these things. However, again, this is just based on expectation. The reality is it's coming. We will hit the slope of enlightenment and the plateau of productivity going forward. And as people who do data stuff for a living, we need to know about this and be prepared for it because it will, I'm convinced, and again, you should be skeptical of me because I might be helping build up the expectation there, and I'm trying not to, but it will change the way the stuff that we do gets done going forward. 100%, I'm convinced of it. It may take a few years, but it's on its way. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as we continue. So here's another example so they do the hype cycle for particular areas, and this is for digital marketing. I just kind of like this because you see tag management up there, kind of on the down slope. Now, for me, I'm already here with that thing, but it's still kind of up there. I mean, there's other things, and this is again around more e-commerce and internet-specific technology for e-business rather than general technology. Yeah, go ahead.
Do you have thoughts also about the amount of private equity and venture capital money that's being thrown at these? Does it kind of peak at the top there, and then the companies go under, and be viable once emerge?
Yeah, I think that's what happens is, the innovation trigger happens, and sometimes it's a startup that might be doing that, and as the hype cycle grows, more and more people jump in to try to create the thing. Then money flows into those. As it bottoms out, this is when some of those fail. Some of them succeed and reap the benefits further along. I think that's a good point. That I think that does happen. I'm not an expert on venture capital into small technology startups, but I think that's a real thing, and I think that's a good call out. I think that's something that the Gartner people have shown over time. Yeah, it's digital business, I think. Yeah. So again, and there's some AI things on here as well. But the point is that when you hear about new technology, you always got to remember there's a hype, and then people get disappointed by it, and then it comes back. It's a very consistent thing over time. And so if you hear a hype of a technology, you should be skeptical, and then when everybody says it sucks and it's worthless, that might be where there's opportunity to get ahead of your competitors. Yeah, go ahead. I don't know. I mean, I think. Look, AR and VR are real things. I think finding, commercial commercially viable applications of them is still, especially in analytics. So, in entertainment, AR and VR, I think there's a lot of potential there. In analytics, I don't know. I mean, I think for a lot of these technologies, the interesting thing for analytics people is trying to understand how we can analyze how we have the consumer behavior that we're able to capture with these. So I think those are real things. How they influence analytics, I'm not so sure. For AR is kind of cool because you can just use it with this. VR with the hardware, specs, I want to see it succeed commercially in entertainment before I would expect it to have an impact in business and other kind of consumer experiences. But that's just my hot take on that. So AI and cognitive systems. So I want to talk a little bit about what those are. Again, this might be stuff that some of you guys know, but some of it might be new to some of you. So what cognitive systems are and what they're good at, there's a few things. So, natural language processing, speech recognition is another piece of it, image recognition, human-computer interaction, dialogue, the ability to talk to a computer and have it talk back to you, which are all things related to unstructured data. Again, if you're analytics people, you know about this, or you really should. That's the key benefit of cognitive systems, is their ability to help you deal with unstructured data. And there's a shit ton more unstructured data in the universe than there is structured data. Now again, a lot of it, what's the easiest set of unstructured data that anyone can access if you have just a little bit of money? It's probably Twitter. But getting Twitter data and making something useful out of it, that's the hard part. So again, understanding what's useful versus not is a whole other thing. That's the 200 level class. But what I didn't mention, machine learning, is natural language processing, speech recognition, image rec, human-computer interaction. What I did not mention is math, because these guys, you don't need an AI system to do a regression analysis for you, right? These guys invented that 500 years ago. It's Leibniz. Yeah, the guy who they fought over who actually invented calculus. Leibniz published it, and then Newton said, "Oh shit, I did that like 20 years ago, just on my lunch break." I don't know who was right or wrong, but yeah. Well, more people recognize him than poor Gottfried over there. But you don't need a cognitive system to do math for you, right? We've got SAS, SPSS, R. We've got smart data scientists who can do those things. But where cognitive systems can benefit is they can take that unstructured data and turn it into structured data, turn it into variables that you can then use in your statistical models. So that's something that, does that make sense? You guys want an example? I should give you an example. Here's an example. So some people at the company I work with, they were working with a scholarship fund, and they were trying to use a variety of data science techniques to predict which of the applications the people who viewed the applications would select as winners of a scholarship. So there was the usual structured data, GPA, demographics, those kind of things. But there was also unstructured data in the form of all of these essays that they had to write. The students, every student had to write essays. And so they still thought, well, gee whiz, what if we look at these essays and we run them through a cognitive system, happen to be some Watson APIs, and use the Watson APIs to generate characteristics of those essays, and then plug those variables that we're creating into our statistical model to see if it can improve the accuracy of our predictions of the actual who the people would select. Make sense? So they did that, and one of the things they came up with is, what they did wasn't super complex. It was basically sentiment and tone analysis, where they generated a score basically of the positivity or negativity of the tone of the essay. And what they found was it did in fact improve the accuracy of their prediction, and it was actually the more negative the tone was of the essay, the more likely the people, again the selectors, were to give that person a scholarship, which you might think, why is that? Here's why, is because when they did that, when the essay, the people who get the scholarships are the ones who talk about the challenges they've overcome, right? Dad's a drunk, mom, beats me. I, had to struggle through school, working 3 jobs, and but what? I overcame those obstacles and I succeeded. As opposed to, I was captain of the cheerleading team and got straight A's and come from a great family. Again, the analysis wasn't trying to select who was most deserving. It was trying to predict who the people would pick. Okay, and so the people pick the hard luck story, the more negative tone, and so that was again what they're doing there is taking unstructured data in the form of essays, using a cognitive system to turn it into structured data, which is just basically a value that they attributed to each one of those applications, and then plugging that into a basic kind of regression model to see what are the key factors that make somebody likely to get picked. That make sense? So that's one of the things that cognitive systems can do right now, is take unstructured data, turn it into structured data to let you do more advanced analytics. Cool stuff. Any of you guys do that right now? It's fine. I don't do that too often either. Here's a couple other things that you need to know about cognitive systems. They need to be trained. So AI is it's cool because these cognitive systems, they can learn, but they need to be current generation systems. They need to be trained. So it provides you. So if you have, let's say, a cognitive assistant, and where you ask it questions and it gives you answers, you need to train that to say yes, right answer, no, wrong answer. So image recognition is a perfect example. Image recognition, it might tell you in the image it's a guy or it's a woman. But if you want to focus on, he's wearing a shirt, he's wearing a button-down shirt, he's wearing a necktie, he's wearing, with a necktie with a double Windsor knot, and bam, bam, bam. If you want to talk about, or the women's shoe, since we got a couple people from DSW here, the women's shoe is a dress shoe versus a pump, which is a dress shoe. I know, I used to work there. But it's a sandal versus a moccasin versus, looks like it's a brocade fabric versus, just kind of patent leather or whatever. It requires training for a system to develop that. Training, it takes time, therefore it costs money. And so you need to understand that, that's a thing too with AI systems. Now, the strong AI, the one that's several years off, the one that's going to take over the world, those can teach themselves, theoretically. They don't really exist yet. So some of the other applications of AI that I wanted to talk about, again, these I think are relevant to all of us, because we're going to get them, so Jarvis, AI assistant, right? So basically what that is, and this is something that's going to go out to non-data scientists, right? That the idea is to create they're called citizen data scientists, which are non-technical people who are doing the work that we all do. But the tools are strong enough that they can generate insights for themselves instead of depending on people like us. So AI assistants or cognitive assistants are basically, I ask it a question, it gives me an answer. And it might have access to every report from our business over the last 10 years, and so I can ask it, hey Siri, what was our sales trend over the last 5 years, and how does that relate to our competitors? It spins for a minute, looks in the data, answers that question for us. That's pretty cool. And those things, again, they exist now. Now, they're going to get better, but there are, every BI vendor that exists right now, every significant BI vendor is working on this, or they have some version of it already. If they don't, A, they're dumb, and B, they're going to fall way behind their competitors. But all the big players are doing this right now. So one of the other things that you can do, and again, for those of us who are web analytics people, when you think about another example of how cognitive might use unstructured data and combine that with structured data. All right, this is an email. I cut it in half because it was so damn long that I got today from Land's End, one of the other companies I used to work for. This thing is filled, right? Just this email is filled with unstructured data. All the images, all the characteristics of the images, the fact that it's a 40% off promotion. You could say that's structured or unstructured, but what a cognitive system can help you do is it can understand that and create variables based on that promotion instead of you having to do it yourself. Same thing, all these images, you have a family image, you have a dude on a paddleboard, you've got a couple of kids jumping in the air, you've got swimsuit bottoms without tops, you've got an array of colors. All of these characteristics, a cognitive system can help you do that and help you understand which of those characteristics actually make a difference in the performance of this email or any other marketing activity that you're doing. Pretty cool. And here's the thing. You could do this, right? I could do it. I could go in and I could attribute all of these things. But that takes brain power and time. For me, if you have a cognitive system that you can train to do it, it does it for you. Now, you need to have a pretty smart cognitive system and a lot of emails for it to be worth doing, because the time and effort to build that, you have to weigh that versus my time and effort. If I have just like 10 emails, it's probably not worth the trouble. That makes sense? Dave.
So that brings up a point about how to
Hey, Tim.
scale to effective AI.
No,
Right, so if you are a guy who sells auto parts online for a particular model of car, and that's your business, it's just you, e-commerce site, a couple people working for you, maybe you have 10,000 email addresses, and your site gets 20,000 visitors a month. Is this stuff going to scale down to that, or is it going to start up high and stay there?
it'll start up high, but I think it will scale down just like personal computers did. Just like many business technologies start with the big businesses that have the budget and then can filter down, right? The big companies had e-commerce websites long before smaller ones did. But there will be a place, because there are so many small businesses in the country, that it absolutely will filter down to smaller businesses for sure. It'll just take a little bit longer, and there will be, instead of custom solutions, it might be more of an out-of-the-box solution that is more general and applies across multiple businesses, and so it might not be as smart for Bob's individual business, but it might be better than what he has. Is there another question?
No, I was just going to comment on what Dave said as far as scale is about. Years ago, they taught computers how to do the human chess, right? And the way that a computer beats human in chess is it thinks 100 steps ahead, right? Where your human brain can only concept maybe 5, 6 steps ahead of the chess player, right? From an AI perspective, when computer power gets faster, you talk about scale from top to bottom, that computer's thinking many, many steps ahead. And that computer thinks fast. So it's really not an issue. It's really computing power that's the limitation.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a big part of it, and I think was it 20 years ago, which is eons ago, that that Big Blue first beat Garry Kasparov, which is and just the and chess is simple, right? And then more recently, Google beat the world champion at Go, which is I think a little bit harder game, even though it's kind of simpler. I think it's harder to play, but if you think about 20 years ago, you could build a computer and AI system that would it was AI that could beat anyone in the world at chess. And how other things have advanced in the last 20 years, AI has advanced that much as well, for sure.
There's a platform service that you can sign up with at a free level called Monkey Learn that has like pre-trained kind of recipes that if you want to have a data set and you want to analyze, is this a business, is this a person,
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing is they learn through, like, not like we learn, but similar. They learn through repetition, for sure. And general systems are going to learn through looking at many businesses, and that's where kind of that general benefit is going to be. But then for IBM or for Procter & Gamble, there's going to be very specific use cases for their businesses that are based on their business, their brand, their product, their consumer, bam, 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 all the way through. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Or is it DeepMind? I think it was Google's DeepMind one at Go. Deep Blue was the IBM one years ago that. Yeah, but so there's multiple players in the AI space, for sure. All the big tech companies. Facebook is heavy into AI, mostly to sell ads and help fascists take over the world. Oh, I didn't say that. I hope you're watching, Monish. I'm kidding, sort of. Google, obviously, is Amazon is all over it. The big consulting firms are either partnering with technology companies or building it themselves. The big BI vendors as well. If you're in, and then a ton of startups. And one of the challenges is, getting the hot shot, MIT PhDs to come work for your company. And if you're IBM, you're fighting against Google and Facebook and Amazon, and I don't know how often we win that fight, at least for talent. That's because they don't have Teresa recruiting them. So a few other things that are going to happen with AI systems that are going to impact every single one of us. So reports. So right now, who here generates a report ever as a part of their job? Yeah. So here's what I would say. That's not a long-term career opportunity for you guys, is being a human report generator. Again, it'll start with the more sophisticated BI vendors, but report generation is going to change, and there's a few things that are going to change about it. One thing is a report that comes out is going to have, they call them insights. I don't know if I call it insight, but narrative associated with the report that's going to be generated by BI. So instead of just saying a bunch of numbers and a graph or whatever, a lot of reports that some of us generate have commentary on there. It'll be automatically generated by an AI system. Again, it'll get smarter over time, but that's one aspect of it. Another one is, I think, the way that humans and business people, because right now, I mean, anybody who works in any kind of a business and you're getting reports, you're getting more reports than you can consume. So having AI to help, number one, generate only the information that you need, and two, give it to you proactively when you need it to help make the decision that you need based on it learning about your preferences and what data that you need, that's going to be something, again, that's a pretty cool opportunity. And again, all the big BI vendors are working on that right now. And that will be something in the next few years you will see pretty regularly in the marketplace. So smart reports with natural language generated narrative right in the report. Pretty cool. And again, and we'll talk about what we as analytics people, the unicorns who are maybe not going to be unicorns as much anymore, what we can do about that. But a few other things. Context. AI can help with the context around the data, right? So there's a reason there's a crown on context there, and that's because in any business, any information you get, the context around that is king. And AI will help provide the right information in the right context for business users. Cultural change. So this is where I think if businesses struggle to adopt AI and unlock its true power, it's in this. Because one of the benefits of AI is going to be that not us in this room, but the people who currently consume the analytics that we create, there's going to be tools that are easy enough and powerful enough for them to do a lot of that stuff themselves. However, that's going to require a culture change within businesses and within organizations to make that real, because Sally in marketing, right now, she probably does have access to your BI system, and she's not logging in to look at that stuff. Maybe she's looking at the stuff that you email her, and if you put words in it and talk to her in a meeting, she's going to use it. So the culture shift that I think successful businesses will make, and that the workforce in the future will need to make in order to keep their jobs, is the business user being more receptive to analytics. Now, they're not going to necessarily be proactive on their own to go in and log in and look at something, but the AI systems will be smart enough to provide them with the information that they need to do their jobs and make their decisions. Because if you think about all this stuff, what we do is help make decisions within a business, right? So the decisions are based on data. Business users will have the opportunity to make decisions based on data that doesn't involve any of us, which can be a little bit scary for those of us who do this stuff for a living. Again, that might be 5, 10, 15 years off, but it's a real thing that will affect most of our careers. So the unicorn, that's us right now, might turn into a horse. Now, horses are still pretty awesome, and they're cool creatures, but they're not magical. They don't have horns. But I think that's the thing that we're going to have to deal with. And one of the things I said, I've read in terms of done by people smarter than me, is right now there's a shortage of data scientists. By 2024, there will no longer be a shortage of data scientists. Number one, because there will be more data scientists, and number two, because the tooling will get to the point where you don't need as many data scientists to, satisfy the desire for analytics. So 5.5 years away. Again, I think that was Gartner that said that. Now, hopefully, we won't go extinct like the unicorn. I know they're not really extinct, but that's that's something that's, I think, scary, because there's been studies that say half the jobs that currently exist could potentially be eliminated by AI, and throughout history. So are we going to get mass unemployment? Throughout history, this has been what's happened with technology. Technology automates things, and then people find other things to do. So 200 years ago, 80% of the population in the United States worked on farms. Now it's like 2%, right? So industrial technology. And then, in the 20th century, computers became a thing, right? A lot of the clerical work and, basic addition and subtraction that took a bunch of people to do, you don't need to do that anymore. A lot of that work went away. Now some people fall behind, right? There's steel workers I grew up in Youngstown, Ohio, steel workers there who struggled with the change in technology as their jobs went away. New jobs were created that they didn't have the skills for, but their kids grew up to be software developers, not steel workers. And the one thing that has been true throughout all of time is, at least in the last couple hundred years as technology has grown, so what this chart is GDP per capita. And this is as far back as it goes, 1960 to 2016. This is as far back as the World Bank had data when I looked at it. Pretty strong upward trend. That's productivity. That's technology leading to greater economic output. And in the last 200 years, at least in the United States, there have only been 2 times where we've had mass unemployment. the Great Depression, 1930s, and then, our recent, recession about 10 years ago. But other than that, technology increases productivity. Technology leads to greater wealth generation, higher standard of living. The Bernie Bros might say higher inequality. I shouldn't say that, Bernie Bros. But that's the thing, right? That's another one of the the symptoms of all of this. And as AI develops, that's going to keep going up. And so the question is it going to be like every other technology that's come along the last couple hundred years that will increase productivity and generate new jobs? Or is it going to be different somehow because now it's knowledge workers and we'll all be unemployed, or maybe the AI will be so great that none of us will have to work anymore? I don't know. So a couple more things, because holy cow, I'm going way too long. I'm sorry. Yeah, Tim, I started really late. Okay, so here's what I think that and you guys asked a ton of questions too. Yeah. Okay, here's what I can suggest for anybody who is like, if I've sufficiently frightened you into what AI might do to your career, I apologize. If you're doing boring, repetitive work now, that's a sign that the stuff you do is going to be done by AI in the future. If you're doing exciting work where you're doing deeper analysis, that's good. And then I think you have a better opportunity to kind of maintain that and do more of that. Hopefully you'll be able to do more of that stuff in the future and less of the, if you're generating reports every week in Microsoft Excel, think about how you might develop your skills so that you can do something else. Become a storyteller, if you have that gift now or not, because AI is going to be super cool, but it's going to take a long time for it to be a good storyteller. And if you see, so I've seen Ruth Milligan speak in 2 months or 3 months or whenever that is. You'll get some tips from her. Don't do what I do. Do what she does. But if you're a storyteller, that's a skill that AI will take a long time to replace, if ever, and it'll probably be after most of us are retired. And the other thing is, I just put this in because I love this picture, is understand your business, because it's the technical skills, the technical stuff, honestly, it might be the super valuable thing right now, but that's the thing that is going to be most easily replaced by a machine in terms of automated. I didn't even talk about automated data preparation, a lot of the data work that we do right now. But if you understand business and you understand the data, but you understand the business and the decisions that are being made using data, you're golden, like Vince up there. So those are my 3, I don't know how many keys that was, 3 keys to survive in the era of AI so that you don't become obsolete. And with that, I couldn't pick one, so I went with 6 memes. Thank you. Any other questions? Go ahead, Dave. Yeah, it's going to take AI a long-ass time to figure out how to implement Adobe Analytics. That is true. That is true. Go ahead, Andy.
Something along those lines, not necessarily the implementation of data collection. There's so much of what we talk about in AI is around data, right? Structured and unstructured data. Probably most of you guys, your companies, the spend 70% of their time cleaning the data before doing anything else.
That's very normal.
So where do you think AI would play in the data cleansing role? Not from a collection perspective, but really identifying the anomalies in the data set and figure out how to either modify it so it actually conforms to what they need to do, or really sort of make that decision without having someone write a bunch of code to identify it and cleanse the data.
That is one of the major use cases for AI in the BI world. I probably should have mentioned it, and I didn't. But that's a real thing that will happen. And because again, a lot of that stuff, a smart system can identify the anomalies and act upon them. So data integration, data hygiene, all of that work. Yes, a lot of that will be automated and made much smoother and with less human interaction for sure. Because that's a pretty normal thing. That 70 to 80% of the time that a data scientist spends is getting the data squared away. The actual building the models, that part's easy.
So I'm going to throw in something else on that too, though, that I think when you think about, and there's cleaning the data and interpreting it, but when you get down to kind of user level data or hit level data, there's still a leap. Like you may be collecting the hits and say, oh, throw it at the machine and AI, but there's still some of the context around how do I take a raw Adobe data feed and say, I want to count the number of unique weeks that somebody visited my site. And it's buried in the data, but somebody has to do the feature selection. Somebody has to figure out what are things that actually matter that we could act on. And I think that's another place that when AI is just working with raw data and there's this kind of misperception that, oh, if you have a powerful enough machine, you throw it at it. Well, you still have to translate that data into features that actually mean something that are variables or features. I'm speaking machine.
Well, for example, right, you have the same value in 15 different columns, right? Hit level data in Adobe. How is AI going to differentiate when to use what?
Right.
So that's where
You teach it, and it will learn.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
But you have to have that.
But you add more columns that it's not going to necessarily figure out how to, like it's not going to. I mean, you could teach it how to sessionize the data, but that's like one tiny little step. I don't know. I'm still skeptical.
Well, and I think the interesting thing is does AI figure out how to use current state Adobe Analytics data, or does it help you track things in a way that it then understands and can? I don't know. I mean, I think that's an interesting thing that the Adobe folks might be working on. I don't know. I have no inside information at all. But yeah.
I was going to say, the thing I've seen, I've been in this business for about 15 years, is that the big fish eat the small fish. And all my clients either been bought out by big businesses or they're out of business because they can't compete. It's once you get a level of something like Google or Amazon, you're tied into the government in each state and NSA. You're never going to have the right data sets. Your data is always going to be shit compared to what they've got. They've been collecting it from all these different directions. So once you have that, and you can predict individual every consumer in the United States and what their tastes are, or you can control that, and it's kind of hard to compete. So I mean,
That's why Amazon's going to take over the world.
it's all platform. You're not Amazon or Google or you're not a monopoly. At least that's what I'm seeing. It's that just like resource. Resource has been around forever. Now it's IBM. I mean, the big fish ate the small fish, but IBM still small fish.
At least they bought us a nice dinner first before they ate us.
Amazon and Google and NSA and all that stuff. So it seems like there's at the top they're all coming together, whether it's government, whether it's retail, I mean, with Amazon and search and everything else. They have quantum computers. They have you can never have enough variables to make predictions because you don't know what the determined variables are. Everything's changing. And analytics is anal. It's what happened in the past. So you're looking at the past and you look in the rearview mirror to go forward in the future. You don't see the big picture. So I think that's the unicorn part is that the guys at the top, they have the big picture and they see the little things that are changing that can change in direction where the things are reported in the media that you see is really either misdirection or it's whatever.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the the winners, if you want to put it that way, companies out there that succeed, Amazon, Google, Facebook, it's because of data, right? And there's no surprise that they're all at the kind of the forefront of developing AI technology because they know that data is how they win. They win with other things, but that's a big part of it. Anything else?
I think we probably ought to. You don't have to leave right now, do you? So we can wrap it up, and you can.
I need
people can
another
tap
beer,
you.
so I'm happy
Need
to
another
wrap it
beer.
up.
That's good.
Yeah.
So, thanks, Mike. That was awesome. Round of applause.